Unang tinalakay ng Magandang Gabi Bayan ang kwento ng pagkamatay ni na Eileen Sarmenta at Alan Gomez. Ika-29 ng Hunyo 1993 nang matagpuan ang dugoang bangkay ni Eileen Sarmenta sa sitio Paputok, Barangay Mabacan, Calauan, Laguna sa loob ng Tamaraw van ng kanyang Upsilonian fraternity brother na si Alan Gomez, kapwa agriculture students ng UP Los Baños. Noon ding umagang yon, natagpuan naman ang isang bangkay na nakasubsob sa tambakan ng basura sa Barangay Imok, Calauan. Kinilala ang bangkay na si Alan Gomez. Ayon sa autopsy report ng NBI na siyang unang humawak sa kaso, lumilitaw na ang bangkay ni Alan Gomez ay maraming gasgas at pasa sa katawan. Mga palatandang binugbog muna ang biktima bago binaril.
Sa dami kasi ng pasa ni Alan, hindi ito pwedeng makuha niya sa pagkabagsak dahil sa tama ng baril o sa isang palo lang.
Ayon din sa report, mga 2 talampakan lamang ang layo ng pagkakabaril kay Alan, kaya ang tama sa likod niya ay tumagos sa kanyang dibdib na ikinawasak naman ng kanyang baga. Malapitan din ng barilin si Alan sa ulo na nagpasabog sa kanyang utak.
Buong base ng ulo ni Alan Gomez, durog lahat yun. Basag lahat yan.
Kaya mayroong posibilidad na it could be a Armalite caliber 5.56 or Armalite Rifle M16.
Si Eileen Sarmenta naman ay binaril sa muka at tumagos ang bala sa kanyang utak. Lumabas din sa autopsy na ginahasa muna bago pinatay si Eileen Sarmenta. Pinabulaan na naman noon ni Chief Superintendent Lahum na kalahating lata ng sardinas ang nakuhang seminal fluid sa bangkay ni Eileen. Pero inamin niyang hindi sinaid ng medico legal ang pagkuha ng lahat ng seminal fluid sa katawan ng biktima dahil sa procedural standards na sinusunod. Inamin din yan na kung sinaid ay may makukuha pa. Indikasyon na hindi lamang isang tao ang gumahasa kay Eileen. Ayon sa boyfriend noon ni Eileen na si Cesar Ong, huli niyang nakita si Eileen noong gabi ng June 28.
It's around 9:15 when we separated. Sabi ko nga sa kanya, huwag na siyang lumabas. Tapos sabi naman niya sa akin, hindi sasaglit lang ako, pupuntahan ko lang si Gina.
Papunta sa best friend na si Gina, nakasalubong naman ni Eileen ang kanyang kaibigan din na si Alan Gomez. Sumakay si Eileen sa Tamaraw van ni Alan at sabay silang pumunta sa Tops Restaurant kung saan naroon si Gina. Mula sa Tops Restaurant, pumarada sa isang parking lot malapit sa Pogies and Sexys store sina Alan. Isang junior brad nila sa fraternity ang nakatambay sa tindahan at nakakita sa kanila sa pagitan ng alas 10 at alas 10:30 ng gabi.
Sabi, pwede bang makipalit ng 2 boteng malamig na beer? Tapos umalis na sila, lumabas na sila.
Mula doon ay bumalik sa loob ng UP campus ang Tamaraw van. Ito na ang huling beses na nakita pang buhay sina Alan at Eileen bago sila dinukot at maranasan ang mala-impyernong sinapit ng dalawa sa kamay ng 7 suspect. Pero noong una, hindi kaagad sina Mayor Sanchez at mga tauhan nito ang inakusahan sa krimen. Unang lumutang ang pangalan ni Kit Alquesa bilang mastermind. Paano nadawit ang pangalan ni Kit Alquesa sa kaso at paano rin napatunayang si Mayor Sanchez at 6 niyang tauhan ang may sala sa brutal na krimen? Abangan po yan bukas sa part 2 ng ating KSP, Kabayan Special Patrol.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Do you know what a dead body smells like? I Googled it. I don't know by myself. Don't come for me. They say a dead body smells like rotting meat. That's to be expected, right? It's rotting meat that's been left on the counter for days. But there's something sickly sweet about the smell. It's not just rotten meat. There's almost a fruity undertone to it. Like the type of sweetness that might make you feel sick. These days, there are a lot of highly effective chemicals that can neutralize these odors, thankfully. But still, there's a constant chemically sharp reminder of what that scent is masking. It's masking the scent of death. It's not easy working in a morgue, especially for college students, but this was a university hospital and these kids in the Philippines needed to get their credits. So instead of joining in on all the fun fraternity parties, these students were basically interns at the morgue.
It's an actual morgue.
Yeah, it's a
So it's like
hospital
a-
morgue.
Oh.
So when it was slow, maybe they would even sit at the desk, try to get some studying done. Tonight was not that night, though. There was a rush of police officers running into the morgue. They had two bodies, both hidden underneath the white sheets. One young female, one young male. The students gathered with the head pathologist on duty and they watched as they peeled back these white sheets slowly, carefully. The police had already warned them, though. It's going to be gruesome. The bodies are not in good condition. This is going to be traumatizing for you guys to see. Like, just be warned. The female body has severe evidence of trauma, most likely essayed and tortured by a group of killers. Both victims were shot. The students stood frozen in, what I can only imagine is horror. The two bodies that were on the cold steel table, they were their friends. They were their classmates. They were university students. And these murders were about to be the biggest mysteries/murder investigations that they had seen in this town in a very, very long time. It would lead to the vanishing of a police officer, 7 high-profile killers being thrown in jail with a combined sentence of 1,970 years in prison. Even the president of the Philippines had to step in and get involved. Because who would do something like this to 2 innocent university students? As always, full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com. Today we're talking about a case that happened in the Philippines, and we had our wonderful Filipino researcher help with this case. I feel like we have a little network of mini detectives in all these different countries now, and it's been intense, but I think you guys have been liking the coverage of international cases, so we've all been working hard to keep them coming. But as always, if you guys know anything about this case that wasn't said in this video, if you have more insight or anything at all that got lost in translation, please leave it in the comments below. And with that being said, let's get into it. Deputy Chief George walks into the conference room at the police station. Officer Aurelio was already there. He's Deputy George's right-hand man. They practically ran every single case together. He was present in the conference room, and the two are sitting there waiting for the 3 other random officers that had also been summoned. They rushed in with their little hot coffees in their hand. So we have Officer Zoilo, Officer Vicencio, and Officer Lewis. So those 3 come in. Now it's 5 officers in this room. Deputy Chief George is in charge. I know it's a lot of names, but they're super important to the investigation. Deputy George and his 4 officers, they weren't particularly a group that always worked together. In fact, they weren't even that close, but this was a very special case. 7 a.m., they had a lot of ground to cover. Deputy George starts the conversation. Look, I didn't call you guys here by accident. Each officer in this room was handpicked by the mayor to form a task force. From now on, the mayor is our boss. Not Major Canyo, who's our boss. The mayor is our boss. Because, boys, today we're going to catch the biggest drug runner in the region, Tisoy. The 5 of us are going to form a cohesive unit of operation. The mayor expects us to have that drug runner in handcuffs on his dirty little wrist ASAP. Do you think we can handle it? So the 4 officers, they're getting excited. They're sitting up straighter. They're putting their coffees down. If the mayor personally chose us for the job, that means he thinks we are the best. We're the best team to get this job done. This was the peak of their careers. In unison, they shouted, "Yes, sir!" And Tisoy was a big problem to a lot of people in the area. But for Eileen and Alan, 2 college students, there was nothing connecting them to this drug runner. A little bit about Eileen Sarmenta and Alan Gomez. They both attended Los Baños at university, which is about an hour from Manila. They both studied agriculture, but Eileen was on the feeding the cows side of it, while Alan was on the eating the cows side of it. Basically, Eileen studied agriculture with a focus on food and nutrition for large animals. She's thinking about what kind of macronutrients do I need to feed these cows so that they can be peak health. And Alan studied agriculture with a focus on beef production. So he's thinking, what can I do to feed this cow into me? So she's feeding them, he's killing them, and together they were friends. Yeah. Since they technically shared the same major, some of their classes overlapped, and sometimes they would share their little notes back and forth. Alan was a whole 2 years younger than Eileen, but they had taken a ton of the same classes, and they have really gotten to know each other. They were hitting it off. They weren't a couple or anything, though. Like, God, no. Okay, Eileen liked Alan and everything, but he was just a friend. Alan felt the same way. They were actually both in committed relationships with other people. Their friendship was strictly platonic. And of course, it's nice to have a study buddy when they know all the struggles of your particular major. So Eileen and Alan's morning, it starts with a lecture, some note-taking, another lecture, a short break for lunch. The campus is pretty spread out and it's summertime, so they try to savor these little walks in between classes. Eileen would lift her hair off her neck because it's really humid. And she thought about her plans for that evening. She's like, okay, once I get out of classes, I gotta do my homework. And then she's like, wait, Alan, we're still meeting for coffee after class, right? Near campus? He's like, yeah, we'll meet for coffee and I'll drive you home afterwards. So the two agree to it. They go to the local coffee shop after classes. They study, exchange notes, but also they caught each other up on all the things that were going on campus. They talked about their professors, fraternity parties, who hooked up with who hooked up with who at sorority parties. It's genuinely just a stereotypical college campus conversation. Now, their university has 12,000 students, so most of the time they had no idea who each other was talking about, but sometimes it would overlap. They finish their coffee. It's getting late. Alan's like, okay, well, let's go back to the car. The parking lot is relatively empty. So this coffee shop is basically on campus, and at this point, everyone had made it back to their dorms. Nobody was really there. So she opens the passenger side door, and she's about halfway in. And side note, Alan has a really funky car in the best way possible. It's this white Enfrage van. It's like a super boxy, looks like a cute camper van almost. It's a truck with 2 seats in the front, and the back is more of like a U-Haul situation. So it's covered, but think of it like a pickup truck. Just a metal sheet floor. There weren't any more seats. It wasn't carpeted. It was just a metal floor. It's cool. It's reliable. It's perfect for a college student like Alan. But I guess in other situations, like if you were driving around your house at night, it might slightly resemble a kidnapper's van, like a stereotypical kidnapper van. Anyway, Eileen opens the passenger door. Alan is reaching for the driver door. They're both halfway in when all of a sudden an ambulance van, or what looked to be an ambulance van, screeches to a stop just a few feet away from their car. This is a van like the regular police drive. But the people driving this van were not pursuants of justice. They were straight up criminals. There were 7 men in that car. 2 of them rush out and start pulling Alan away from the van. Another 2 run towards the side where Eileen is. And by the time that she's already halfway inside the van, the men grab her by the shoulders, pull her out, drag her to the back of the car, open the trunk, and shove her in. Within seconds, both Alan and Eileen were shoved in the back of Alan's car. 2 men get in the front. They start driving. The rest of the men follow in their little police van. Eileen and Alan were terrified. These people had come out of nowhere disguised as a police ambulance, and now they were being held hostage in Alan's own car. These kids have no enemies. These kids have never dabbled in crime. They're your stereotypical run-of-the-mill college students, and I say that with so much respect because, why wouldn't you want to be that? There was nobody in the parking lot that had seen much of anything. There were no CCTV cameras in this side of the parking lot that had witnessed the kidnapping. The only evidence that something very, very bad had happened was while they were in the middle of a struggle, the wallet in Alan's pocket had fallen out onto the parking lot floor. That was the only thing left behind that hinted at anything happening to them.
Stress alis dahil easy lutuin ang delicious cheesy chicken.
Criminals did not notice it. The cars drove away, and as time passed, it seems like the 2 college kids were being delivered to someone. That was kind of because, if these guys wanted to kill them or hurt them or even take something from them, they would have done it right now. They would have done it already. But instead, they drove for about half an hour before pulling up to this massive gated estate. One of the men gets out of the van, opens the door, drags out Eileen. She adjusts her eyes, and in front of her is this, sprawling mansion. And an older man walks out the front door. The way he walks, the way he held his shoulders back, his chest up, chin high, he was a man that wielded power. What kind of power? I don't know. Even his shirt screamed power. We'll later find out that this was like his signature go-to. He always wore a crisp white polo, ironed to perfection, not a wrinkle in sight, pure white, not even a tint of yellowing or doling of the fabric. This was a man that was not to be messed with. These 7 men, they brought her to him. Why? The man speaks. Well, she's gorgeous. And who is that kid? One of the men answers, sorry, boss, he was with her and we had to bring him along to avoid any complications. The man nods, grabs Eileen by the arm, and drags her into the mansion and let the door slam behind them. The kidnappers